the sign of intelligence is the ability to get what you want out of life. So I often look at intelligence. I'm learning something also. I used to think intelligence in one dimension, which is academic intelligence. I left and realized I may not have been the most academically intelligent, but I had intelligence in other things. And one of my intelligences is social intelligence. I started realizing what was important. Like I'm seeing the practical applications of these things. Not everybody went to the kind of school I went to, but they were where they were. So in my mind, I'm like, if you are able to be here, the end justifies the means. That's kind of how my brain works. I started working and I went back to the company. I did my first year of like work experience, the 1 month work experience. And I told them, listen, been looking for jobs. I had some certifications, not getting any callbacks from nobody. You know, I'm thinking now I have all the certifications. I'm going to get people be like, oh, we need you. Nah, nobody called me. And I'm like, listen, I just want to work. You don't have to pay me. So I worked for the first 3 months free, no salary. I didn't get paid. But I had the grand vision. Whatever that vision was, it was either going to work or not work. But I'm like, listen, I might as well just try. You know, this is all I have. So moved to South Africa and I realized so many things were so new to me. Like, I often tell people the transition from Lagos to Cape Town was 10 times harder from Cape Town to Seattle.
When next are you immigrating to China?
This is the last one, man. I'm not doing anything after this, man.
Bro.
I can give you, listen, I'm so excited to talk today, man. I can't even lie, but yeah.
Not any longer.
Bro. It's so bad right now that I don't even want to apply for visas anymore. Like I have to apply for 3 different visas because of work. Well, one is because of work and the other 2 because I will be in Europe. I'm trying to get Schengen and a UK visa.
Yeah.
I just gave my passport up. So I was meant to go. I know I was trying to plan trips to like Caribbean. I can't go anymore because I don't have my passport with me anymore.
Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Build, a podcast where we talk about the unfiltered experiences of being a professional in the tech space that doesn't involve the technical things like writing code or DDoS attacks in the case of the guest that we have. We do have a very special guest joining us for this episode. If you've been a fan of my channel, you've seen him on my very first episode of Tech Story. We go way back. I remember, just for some background, we met at a party and we started talking about networking in the middle of the dance floor, which was, wow, that was our first conversation together. So we just hit it off since then, but I will let him introduce himself. You want to go?
Yeah, for sure. First off, I want to give you all your flowers. Literally, I was in Costco this morning, this afternoon, and I was going to buy flowers. I went to grab the cart and I loaded my cart and I forgot to buy the flowers. So I'm sorry I didn't bring the flowers.
No,
but I really want to give you your flowers because I'm a big proponent of community and platforms. You know, you start your channel now. I'm very optimistic that it grows to be bigger than it is, and it reaches the crowd. I don't really care about the size. I'm more about the quality. Whatever content you're putting out, people out there are connecting with it, and
Absolutely.
you know, I also want to give you all your flowers. You know, big ups to you to setting this up, following your conviction, following your, you know, your friendship, and actually producing fruits from it. You know, some friendships just stay and close down. You guys are actually creating something for the public to consume. So, big ups to you. Yeah, my name is Fola Bolodioku. I am a senior security engineer at Amazon Web Services, AWS, as most people call it colloquially. I've been in this space for about 10 years. I started working right after college in 2014-15. And I been at AWS in Seattle now for 3.5 years. We did that Tech Stories podcast in 2022. Probably June of that year, I think.
June
it was just before my birthday that year. And 3 years later, we're back in a different iteration. You know, so much growth has happened between then and now. You know, Ope is now in the picture. We have a different, it's still kind of similar, but like a different
perspective.
Yeah, perspective. And yeah, so that's who I am. Just keep it short and sweet. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, first thing is this, right? You said your name is Fola, but like, you know, this is the thing. My name is Okwe, but my name is not Okwe. My name is Okwe Olua. So what is the Fola?
I say, listen, for me, if I could go by F, I'll go by F. I'm not even kidding, man.
Yeah.
Some coffee shops, I tell them my name is Phil. You know, I'm just
Phil
like,
is crazy.
Call me Phil. Like, because I don't care, man. Like, get me my coffee, let me go. You know, if it's really important, then I will spell out my name. You know when it's important?
Where?
on my visa application.
Oh, yeah.
And they say your name must appear as your passport. At that point, I can't be like, hey, my name is Fola. They need your name to be as it is, or you don't get on the flight. So I kind of work with those. That's how my brain works. I work within what is required and what's not required. Yeah. It keeps my life very simple.
I know.
You understand? Because if I keep putting the requirement of I need to say Oluwa Fola Bomi, Moshope Foluwa, Bolo Dioku. That's a lot, So I'm like, you know what? Let's just keep it short or simple.
I do know a lot about you and your background and your story, but for our viewers, can we dive into your origins, for lack of a better word, from how you started, maybe starting in college, and then you worked for a little bit in college, and then what that transition looked like from college to then being professional and then being an international professional, because you went to South Africa, and then we'll talk about just all of that, but just a little bit about that background.
So I can start from very first interaction with the computer was in, I would say, secondary school, first year of secondary school. There was a tower PC that I think my dad had some interest in getting me to learn. And we've always had PCs around. I've always been interested in computers and science, specifically science. Technology as an application of science just became as a consequence of me, just like in science in general. My goal was to be a scientist. In that podcast, I said how Dexter inspired me. So that's still true. It's not a fabricated story, by the way. So I've always loved science. I've always been super curious as a person, want to know why things are the way they are. And science was that avenue to kind of express the curiosity. So in the 5th year of my secondary school term or campaign or whatever, folks are beginning to decide what they want to do. I was in technical science class or science class. So I knew that I wanted to do computer science. Whatever conviction just told me this is where the world is going to. So I was like, I love computers enough to do computer science. Then I got selected to do computer science in Covenant University. And I think in my first year in university, I had an internship job right in front of my house. A family friend of mine ran this company that I eventually went back to work for. They were one of the 3 biggest ATM vendors in Nigeria. So I did an internship there. And why that was really important for me was I started troubleshooting PCs. Server client communications in my first year in university, practically, which we were not doing in university, by the way. We both went to the same university, right?
See you.
Shout out Covenant University, up Eagles. During that period, I spent one summer doing that, and he will take me to a place called Computer Village, right? And he showed me all his vendors and everybody and all that kind of stuff, right? So that practical experience was really helpful for me. It just gave me a very pragmatic view of life. My second year in university, I became a businessman. I started.
We heard stories.
I became a businessman. I started. I was printing for people I was printing like their architectural diagrams, engineering diagrams. I was one of the 2 main printers in Paul Hall, and that kind of distracted me from school. So I wasn't going to school as much. I would miss classes because I'm printing. And then 3rd year, wasn't doing great at school, honestly. 3rd and 4th year. 4th year, I was like, bro, I got to turn it around. Otherwise, I'm going to have an extra year in this place. Fortunately, by some stroke and miracle of God, I was able to do my 4 years without having an extra year. And I graduated with computer science. And I asked myself what I want to do with this degree. I'm like, man, I never enjoyed it. I love the idea of, I just feel like I wasn't a good student. And that didn't give me confidence that I could pursue this. So I began being a very pragmatic person. I said, I really like to pursue things I think I can be good at. So I've always been good at geography. I've always liked physics. Let me try piloting, I wanted to become a pilot. It's funny, but I think I still have that desire to get my PPL, my private piloting license. It's more attainable than it was back then. Hopefully in the next 5 years, I can get my PPL. I do still want to fly. I love to fly. So early 20s, and I said to myself, I'm already behind. My colleagues have these credentials. So some folks would go into those big 4 because they guaranteed really good grades. They immediately get pushed by the big 4. Some went to do postgraduate degrees, either mostly outside Nigeria. So I was like, I had to go back to the drawing board and figure out what I was going to do. So I realized, okay, cool. Back to this degree. What are we going to use this degree for right now? Because for me, the only thing that computer science was worth in the job market was being a good programmer. And I was being a good developer. I was not that, right? I barely made it out of programming classes. So Again, reality setting, how do I kind of make this work? I just went back to what I was really good at, which is I spent practical time, or I did mention my internship. I interned at the bank in 6 months, we did that 6-month internship program. Honing my craft of playing around with all these things, operating systems, computers, just very basic Windows, how to make Windows work, formatting systems, just, very easy sysadmin stuff, right? Yeah, registry, edits, and all that kind of stuff. So I like to be the one that knew the funky ways for things to work, activation codes and how to, all those things. And I'm not going to mention some other stuff. But third year, did the 6-month stint in the bank, exposed me even more. That's where even gave me the most of the confidence I got. I was in the IT department working for the terminal support department. So this kind of already was in my life. I'm thinking, interesting. Started working there, got exposed to a bunch of professionals, and I saw what they did. The networking people, the databases people, the Windows administration, the email administration, the BlackBerry administration. There used to be BlackBerry administrators. We have physical BlackBerry servers, BES servers, BlackBerry enterprise servers in the server room. So I saw what they did. I did some sort of on-call where you would get paid. Unfortunately, my on-call doesn't pay me when I do on-call right now. But you get paid for working on the weekend, right? So I remember I used to take their up like, yo, let me do your weekend for you. I don't have anything I'm doing, man. This is all I'm doing. So people are more than happy to give me their weekends. I was making money off of that. Remember, I like money. So I started realizing what was important. Like I'm seeing the practical applications of these things. Not everybody went to the kind of school I went to, but they were where they were. So in my mind, I'm like, if you are able to be here, the end justifies the means. That's kind of how my brain works. Came out of school with all that experience and then realized I couldn't do aviation. Then I asked myself what I could do. That's when networking came in. At that point, cloud had just begun to come into my consciousness when I graduated university. And this was still many years before cloud became a thing. But I was reading the certification. I was like, I like this. I like the practical sense of something somewhere that allows you to host your services without hosting it on your premises. So I was just curious about the book, and that was my really first exposure to cloud. And then I realized the most practical thing for me to do was learn networking, because I feel like it makes sense to me. I can be good at this. If I can't be good at something, I really don't want to do it, which is kind of a coping mechanism for maybe childhood trauma somewhere, I don't know. But I was like, I could be good at this, so let me try to hone this skill. And then I started doing the networking certification. I would go to the trainings in Computer Village. And then I got into the workforce because I couldn't afford to just keep doing exams without making money. Right? It's expensive to write these exams. So I started working, and I went back to the company. I did my first year of like work experience, the 1-month work experience. And I told them, listen, been looking for jobs. I had some certifications, not getting any callbacks from nobody. I'm thinking now I have all the certifications. I'm going to get people be like, oh, we need you. Nah, nobody called me. And I'm like, listen, I just want to work. You don't have to pay me. So I worked for the first 3 months free, no salary. I didn't get paid. But I had the grand vision. Whatever that vision was, it was either going to work or not work. But I'm like, listen, I might as well just try. This is all I have. Because at that point, I felt like I didn't have a choice other than that.
Yeah.
So it felt like my back was against the wall. This is the only option I had.
If it didn't work out, you were just in the same spot that you were just in.
So I'm like, it can't get any worse than this, right?
Literally,
So might as well just keep it going. Just start doing something. And maybe that says something about me and not trying to go somewhere else. I don't know. But I began to do the certifications and started working in that place and started working with endpoint security. And so that's began my official cybersecurity journey about 10 years ago. And I had to learn how, what endpoint security meant, how it works, the algorithms that are used for detection, what kind of statistical behaviors that are used to determine when a file is bad, malicious, or good, right? I didn't have to understand the science behind it, but I had to understand well enough to talk to people who asked me questions about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the process of going from being that networking engineer to then being recruited at Amazon, going to South Africa and all of that?
So I had worked at the first company right out of college for 2.5 years, or 2 years. Yeah, 2 years, not 2.5, 2 years. In my second year, I reached out to one of, because I was never happy at that place. I'm not going to lie. Remember, I started off for free.
Yeah.
And I pushed them to pay me more money doing 2 jobs. They pay me half of 1 job. So I'm getting quarter of the total pay, right?
Wow.
But you remember, again, very locked in at that time. had made a lot of sacrifices. That's one of them. So I wasn't satisfied. I wasn't happy, but I kept it pushing. You know, that didn't weigh me down or nothing. So I remember reaching out to one of my colleagues from college, who was like, "Oh, you do this thing, you know, cybersecurity stuff, antivirus, you know, security. This other guy that you know went to school with us also does this. Probably reach out to him and see if they have a job for you or something." So I reached out to one of my classmates from Covenant University, and I was like, "Yo, listen, yeah, this guy told me you guys do this. You know, do you have any spots at your company?" I said, "Yeah, send your CV." I think he was hesitant. I don't know if he's gonna watch. I'll probably send this to him. I think he was hesitant because he remembered me as a very unserious person from college, right? Remember I said I was not focused on school. So he did not want me to come in and mess up his, you know, reputation, exactly, right? If you're referring somebody, is that a professional referral or is that just like in the society? Yeah, you met somebody at a conference, you're like, yeah,
sure,
I'm trying to refer Okpe. Not that you know Okpe, and but you're putting in, you know, word for him. So I think he was hesitant, but he said, no worries, like it doesn't show anything bad on him. He gives someone the chance. If they flunk, they flunk. And I went there and I killed that interview, man.
Yeah.
Because I'm working this. This is not theoretical. Like,
so this was a different company?
Different company, but
wasn't
competitors. This was not Amazon. Yeah.
Okay.
This is McAfee. We were working McAfee in Nigeria. We were working with Kaspersky. So different product, but the same industry. And so the fact that we could relate to many things was good. And then this company was one of the premier McAfee support vendors in the entire country of Nigeria. While I worked there, I was consulting like I would for many other customers within that, you know, space. And one of the guys I worked with moved over to AWS in South Africa. And when I heard the news that he was leaving after maybe like 2 or 3 weeks of starting this project with him, I was like, wow, AWS, that's crazy. You know, I remember thinking to myself, that's like madness, moving from Nigeria to South Africa to go work for Amazon. I was like, yeah, can't be me, but, you know, happy for him. And then he must have put my name in. He did put my name in for referral. My name with a ton of other folks that he had worked with referred us because Amazon was heavily recruiting across the world in Cape Town, South Africa for the position of cloud support engineer. So my name was put in and I got reached out to by a recruiter. And I remember thinking that they were scammers, so I didn't respond to them.
419.
I thought they were 419. I was like, yeah, this, you can't get me, you know. So I didn't respond. And he reached out to me and said, you know, did you get some Richard? I'm like, what Richard? He said, you know, he said everything. I was like, oh, flip. So that was you. Went back to the lady and said, yo, I'm definitely interested.
No vex.
I'm sorry. Let's get this rolling, you know. I'm sorry. No vex, I beg. And she then we started the process, did like a pre-screening process, some technical assessment process, some simulation process for something where you pick like 3 domains you're good at: networking, databases, scripting, some, you know, do all of those things. And then I got pulled to a phone screen. All this time I didn't tell nobody. It took me probably 5 months to get this whole process sorted. I started in January. I didn't get that job till official offer letter till June. Or end of May, right? They called me on site to Cape Town. I was the first time I left Nigeria, right? I traveled to South Africa on a visa to go. I think I got 7 days to Cape Town, right? Literally, they were like, yo, go here 7 days and leave our country. Right? Immediately. So I was there for 7 days. I wasn't there for 7 days. I got the visa of 7 days. I was there for 2 days. I flew out on a Monday, did the interview on Tuesday, and flew back out on a Wednesday. Didn't tell anybody at my company. Only my parents knew and my siblings, right? And I got back to work and I was just waiting. And Amazon has a 5-5 promise, something like that. I can't believe I'm forgetting this. Anyway, they get back to you within 5 days, pretty much, right? So I got feedback within 5 days that I got the offer. I was at work that day. It was a public holiday, but I was at work because the grind don't stop, you know. I was at work that day, the only person in the office studying for some other exam. And I remember I saw that and that changed my life, man.
Yeah.
Till today, man. I still look back and I'm like, life has never been the same since then. It changed my life forever.
So Fola, you've gotten us through the journey of you starting your security career and moving to South Africa. And obviously now you're here. But do you want to give us a bit of when you Johnny just dropped in South Africa. How did you figure out? Like you've done this twice, right? So how did you figure out navigating those spaces? Like how did you adapt to like working in like a completely new environment that you'd never been in before?
I would start by saying that I consider myself to be a very adaptable person. I don't have a lot of requirements that I need to get fulfilled, right? So it makes me think pragmatically about what the situation is and just say, okay, if this is what I have to do to get this, then this is what I'm going to do. So moved to South Africa and I realized so many things were so new to me, man. Like I often tell people the transition from Lagos to Cape Town was 10 times harder from Cape Town to Seattle. Because by the time I moved over to Seattle, there was differences in the American culture to South African culture, but they're both Western countries to some extent, especially Cape Town is very Western if you ever go to Cape Town. So it wasn't a lot of differences. But Lagos, Nigeria, corporate environment to South Africa, American company in South Africa is not anything on the same realm in any way, shape or form. So my adaptation started by first off understanding that now for the first time in my life, my performance dictates if I can stay in this country or not. No one tells you.
Yeah.
No one is ever going to tell you when you're signing the dotted line that, this is the implication of this. I moved to South Africa on a critical skills visa, similar to H1B. And the visa is literally on the stamp of the visa says Amazon.com. So it's any immigration officer knows he's here to work for those guys only. So you can't, like similar to when I moved over here and I did the L1, can't run any other business or nothing. So let me go back to the adaptation. That was the first thing. Realizing, okay, then I'm like, man, this is not a plating. I can't just be doing anyhow, because if I do, then performance gets impacted. You're not just leaving the company, you're leaving the country, right? So that kind of shaped my mindset. I was not really I was very serious in South Africa. So I was super focused on work because it was the first time I was seeing things like JSON. Because I was supporting cloud security services like Identity Access Management or IAM. And I was supporting things like, Cloud HSM and Secrets Manager. And so I'm doing identity, I'm doing cryptography, I'm doing what else? Threat detection. So I knew the things I was really familiar with and I stuck to those. The things I wasn't so quite familiar with, like the depths of cryptography, I had to go learn those things. So I quickly had to understand my environment.
Okay.
Adapting to the environment there's so many adaptations. There was adaptation to the weather.
Yeah.
I moved to South Africa in summertime, which is like the end of the year, end of the calendar year, beginning of the calendar year. It's like summertime in Cape Town. But that was cold to me. I was wearing a jacket in summertime because I was cold. And so I was learning this whole new environment, learning this whole new stack of AWS, never really had worked with AWS and they didn't mind. So I had to learn AWS from the scratch.
What was it like working with people, like collaborating with people? How was that different from the way you collaborated with people in Nigeria?
It was so different. Again, that's what I'm touching on. Nothing was the same. Not shout out to Drake, but there was nothing that was alike, right? In the interactions with colleagues, there was something that was alike. In South Africa, they have a very European culture of like, especially in Cape Town, called Branas, which is beer in Afrikaans. And so at 5 p.m. after work, everybody goes to the pub to go drink beer. I didn't used to drink at the time. But now I'm probably going to be with them every 5 p.m. because I do that now. In summertime in Seattle, I'm always drinking beer in some, Tapstar or in a local public. Shout out those guys. I love them. But yeah, the culture, that was probably one of the only things was they had that culture, but people were not very interpersonal. You don't get invited to people's weddings.
Yeah.
I remember I brought, on my first birthday in South Africa, I bought boxes of pizza because my last birthday in Nigeria, that's what you do. It's your birthday, you buy food for people. And people were looking at me weird. They're like, what are you doing? Why are you buying pizza for us? Like, we can afford our own pizza. But I was like, never again. Okay, cool. So this is how y'all do over here. I'm never, ever doing this again. And since then till now, I've never done that again.
Yeah.
Right? So that was one of the things I experienced was, people keep it strictly business.
Yeah.
Right? It's even worse in the US, especially where I work.
Yeah.
It's different in the US, in Seattle, right? I thought Cape Town was crazy compared to Nigeria. This is even on a whole nother level of straight line and everybody on the B line straight to work, only work related, right? You as a person, I consider myself to be a very sociable person. And so I also find my way for people that are also enthusiastic to meet. Yeah, I will. But in general, it's not the environment you're in. It's not Nigeria anymore. You don't chop it up into, into each other's personal lives like you would in Nigeria. In Nigeria, we become friends. You become family.
Yeah. Almost, yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you become
With your
family.
coworkers, yeah.
We pretty much become family with co-workers, right? And I understand why we have the same culture. We grew up in the same way. Yeah, it's much more diverse. Cape Town was so different because we were like a United Nations at AWS. Remember I said they were hiring externally from other countries. We had folks that were Brazilian, a lot of Brazilians. I got exposed to my first Brasileiros in Cape Town on my team. Different culture, different language, there were a lot of Indians, there were a lot of Zimbabweans, other Africans like Kenyans. So it was my exposure. The first time I met another West African properly was on my team from Cameroon, So it was all of this different, not just learning this new tech stack, but then learning to interact with other cultures.
Speaking of those other cultures, how did you navigate communicating with them, right? Because communication is like, there's so many there's so many aspects of communication. There's the tone that you use. There's the height of your voice, where I know if you've ever been in a room with a lot of Nigerians that are talking, like they shout, right? Like we're speaking on top of our voice, and sometimes, in meetings you could be very passionate about something and you're like, and then, there's just so many aspects of that communication where within cultures, right? Like people have unspoken rules that maybe you may not have known. Like, what did that process look like, learning to communicate across all those people?
It was very passive for me. Underlying how I think is something called, similar to a concept called OODA, which is a military concept for observe, orient, decide, and act. So I'm observing a lot. I'm just collecting data points for no reason. Just kind of observing, and quickly orienting myself towards what I've observed.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm observing that the tone in voice is different.
Yeah.
We no longer say sir and ma. Yeah. Yeah. You no longer say not just sir and ma.
Yeah.
Maybe that's even too much. You no longer say Mr. Okpe anymore to talk to your manager or to address your manager. You don't say Mr. Okpe. You don't say Mr. Uma. You call him Uma, even if it's your manager's manager, right? For me, that was like, no, you have to still show a little sign of respect and say Mr., properly address someone formally. That does not apply anymore.
Yeah.
I noticed that things are a lot more formal. Things are a lot more, you have to write things. People write a lot.
Yeah.
Right? And in Nigeria, we slightly informal even in the corporate environment.
Yeah.
Things don't necessarily have to follow the due protocol or due process. But when you mix people up, it's kind of like having standards on RFC.
Yeah.
That's what I started learning. The unofficial RFC of working in a multicultural environment is because you have multiple people from different places. You've agreed on this one single standard on how to do things. If you had everybody do how they want to do in their culture, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So you have to, this part of my observation was for us to build this global multi-trillion-dollar company that takes all these different people from different parts of the world together, no one single culture can win. Of course, the American culture is the underlying culture there. But, we can't have a single culture that wins here. So, yes, it was in South Africa, but there were a lot of different people there. So I had to learn how to, and everybody, it wasn't just me that was learning, to be fair. I think that was one of the fortunate things for me is because everybody moved there.
Around the same time.
No, maybe on my team, when I first moved, we were really expanding at the time. I'm sure that team has grown to way more than we were. At the time, we were probably like 9 people on that team. There are probably maybe 30 people now in South Africa on that team. I want to say people that were from Cape Town were maybe 1 or 2 people.
Fair.
They were South Africans on that team, but they were not from Cape Town. So you didn't have locals. You didn't have a lot of locals around you, right? So race is another thing I had to go learn. That was a big deal for me.
Yeah.
Nigeria is a 99.99999% black country.
Yeah.
So first time I'm getting thrown into this, signing my onboarding process. You just went through that. So paperwork first week is just pure paperwork.
Paperwork, yeah.
All right, so paperwork, and it says race, and I'm like, race, okay. African, European, or African, white, Indian, Chinese. I'm like, African? Bro, I'm Nigerian, I'm Yoruba. What do you mean African? I don't know. So I sincerely asked my manager, who is a colored South African, and he said, he joked with me. I think it's still on Amazon. He's been there for like 10, 11 years now. He was like, he's colored. He just said he always puts white just to mess with them. So that was first time in my life I had to identify as something other than what I identified up until that time. So all these things are hitting me at once. Trying to understand culture, trying to understand interpersonal relationships, how to understand communication, and how I can't just go off of, you understand what I'm saying. You have to write things down. Meetings, things are very formal now.
Yeah.
Meetings start at the time they start.
Yeah.
That's still something I'm always shocked by till today, that we start the meeting at 10 o'clock and people are there by 10 o'clock. Other people start running late and stuff. But then, there's no African time.
Yeah.
You still don't have a lot of, like what you explained prior to, starting this again. You don't have that thing where people, somebody personally and they can come and save you. There's no one can save you. Again, it's maybe because it's Amazon. It's a very big corporate, right? So
you're on your own.
You're on your own, really. Your manager is not really your. I remember telling thinking that, because there's so many things, but in Nigeria, your manager is kind of like, the authority.
Yeah.
Here, your manager is just another employee like you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't have any special authority over you. They don't know everything.
Yeah.
They find out that there's RTU the same day you find out there's RTU.
Yeah.
It's not like, they get called. They're just people managing. So those are things I didn't quite understand. So many, I can keep going on and on and on, but let me take a break there.
How was, I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it again for the viewers. The tax system. I know we've had hours and hours of conversation about navigating that, but how was that?
Man.
Just understanding, or not even understanding, like some of the challenges that you had to go through with that system, right?
I don't want to get too deep into this. South Africa uses pay as you earn. So you really don't have to think about withholding. It's withheld automatically. If you owe X amount of dollars or rands, that's automatically withheld. The tax brackets are much higher there. So we get withheld automatically 45 to 50% of your income, right? So that I was happy about. That's where the happiness ended, that the tax reduced. Other than that, the structure here is a very do-it-yourself structure. And maybe people told me and I just did not pay attention, but I don't remember anybody telling me anything about the taxes here. So my very first year, I got hit with this hefty tax bill and I was so confused. I remember trying to escalate to my manager that, could you please reach out to the management of the tax
IRS.
consulting company, not even IRS, the tax consulting company, PwC, that, helped me handle my taxes, because when you get relocated, one of the benefits is you get your taxes filed for you because you're still dealing with 2 different countries' tax codes. So I was like, there's something wrong. I'm paying my taxes. I'm not evading taxes. Why are you guys telling me I'm owed? I never owed money in my life. I was so frustrated. And they told me there's nothing you can do about it. You got to pay. So I learned that lesson. I didn't quite learn the lesson because the next year I got hit with the higher bill. And I was like, what did I do wrong? I thought I had fixed this. It was the whole thing with the W-4 withholding, stating exactly how much I should withhold. If your income increases, you should go review the withholding and ensure that you are withholding what the government expects for your tax bracket, right? Yeah. If by your tax status they expect to withhold X amount of X percentage from your gross income, you should ensure that that's what is withheld. If you under withhold, at the end of the tax year, they're going to come ask for the money. And so that's what happened to me, back to back to back. And I finally learned my lesson this year. So this year, when the bill came, I was like, okay, cool. I already know what's going to go on. So yeah, I never dealt with that in South Africa. I got money back every single year. Never in my life have I got money in this country.
From the US.
Yeah. So
I think in the communication thing, could you talk us through an example or a scenario where like you made a communication mistake? Especially because you've been talking about a lot of dealing with people from literally all over Africa, for example, and Brazilians. Like, could you talk us through an example of a scenario where you're like, maybe I should have done this communication better?
Let me be honest. I don't think I struggled a lot with communication.
Okay.
Right. Because I was, like I said, I was quickly able to observe how things were done and just follow, stay within the pocket of how people behave before I find my own behavior.
What mistakes did you see lots of other immigrants that were around you make?
Honestly, I'll say we had a very forgiving culture, right? So many people we worked in cloud support. And so you're doing a lot of written and verbal communication in cloud support, right?
Yeah.
Of course, there's going to be grammatical errors.
Yeah.
All right, so there was that.
Yeah.
Because not everybody is an English first speaker. You have people that their first language is Portuguese or Spanish.
Yeah.
And so, of course, you can expect them to understand how to write, That's where I felt I was at an advantage. Because fortunately and unfortunately, my first language is English. So I never had an issue with that per se. And I'd been doing something similar in Nigeria with verbal and written communication with our clients as well. So for me, that was, let me think. I think one thing I learned was you have to back up every statement with data. Very data driven. You just can't say things. They called it weasel words.
Yeah.
You can't say, it took me, several hours to get here. That's a weasel word. How many hours did it take you to get here? 2.5 hours, 3 hours? Because when you get to put that number down, you often have to be able to substantiate it with something. If you say several hours could be 10 days, it could be 100 hours. I don't know. It could be whatever, right? And so that's one thing I learned, you can't just use feelings. You got to use data, right, to back things up. That was one of the things I learned. You also have to refer in your communications, especially when you're making your reference. If you're referring to something, you got to make a reference to the source, right?
Yeah.
So if you say, this RFC says that, TCP SYN can only behave in this specific way, you can't just say that without saying this is where you got it from. So if you're making any communication with anybody, or if you're communicating with anybody, especially formally to customers, you always have to refer to whatever source you used or you got that from.
I think one of the things in communication for me has been, in the US, you cannot show emotion when you communicate. And it's just a thing. It's really, really hard.
So I will say one thing that hit me, and I'll tell people a lot in my life. I say this. I say occupational hazard.
Yeah.
Which means if I do something, it's because I've adapted so much to work that it has bled into my personal life. One of them is that.
Yeah.
I noticed when we worked with our South African colleagues and we were doing salutations in emails, we'll say, "Hi, Omar, how are you doing?" Body of the email.
Yeah.
When it was the US counterparts, no salutations whatsoever, straight to whatever the topic was. So now I do that. So 2 weeks ago, I was in a group chat with some friends, and I just went straight to what I was trying to say, like, "Are we meeting up at this place?" And she goes, "Fola, no, hello, hi, how are you doing?" Just straight to I'm like, "I'm so sorry. We don't do that. I'm not used to that whole, hi, Okpe, how are you doing?" I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it almost feels like in the professional workplace, when you do it, it's just for the sake of, like, it's like the TLDR, right? Not TLDR, no hello, right? Get straight to the point,
hello,
right? Like,
yeah,
God, you can't message someone, hi.
And then, yeah.
Like, what?
That's a really good one.
Yeah, right?
No
It's
hello.net.
Yeah, exactly. No hello. Like, you have to, or if you say hello, say whatever you're going to ask for within the same body of that.
I remember that as well. And actually now, that's the thing about life, and that's why I think this journey has been very beautiful for me, that's one thing I agree with. I actually agree with that, other than, so now in my personal life, someone just says, "Hi, Fola," I'm not responding. Nah. Follow up with what you want from me.
Like even in the hi, right? You could be like, hey, how are you doing? I'm just reaching out to check up on you and see how you're doing. Boom, right? Knowing people who haven't checked up on you in some time, the next, like maybe a few days later, they will then ask for something, they just want to use that to like warm the connection, which is fine. But yeah, you're right. In that, if someone just texts you hi, or except if it's your younger sister or it's like someone that you know, I don't know. Yeah. It typically feels a little bit.
So I kind of took that on official. I never put the hi, no hello on my
Slack,
my Slack status yet. Yeah. Or on our community page.
Mm-hmm.
On your profile, you can join communities, and one of the communities is no hello.
Mm-hmm.
So that means you should know that this person doesn't like if you just say hello to them without actually saying what you want to do. But yeah.
Speaking of that, I want to pivot to a topic about identity, right? I think we kind of, in some way, I don't want to say lose our identity, but we water it down because you're now adapting to the work identity, right? It's literally what you mentioned, where in Amazon, there is no set way, right? Like, rather, there's a set way that everyone, regardless of where you're from, is adapting to, because that's the work way, right? That's what needs to happen for the business to move forward, right? That's why they're paying you. But how do you balance that without losing who you are, without losing the things that make you, right? Because if you show up to work and you're a different person entirely, I know you don't do that. You specifically, you show up as you wherever you go. Like you're the same person at work, at wherever you go, you're the same person, right? How have you balanced that where you don't lose your identity regardless of the spaces that
I'm a very proud person.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah. For example, Amazon is an American company. So if you're writing public documentations, you're meant to spell with American English.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no, I'm writing this content. It's going to be in British English. That's what the English I speak, right? Unfortunately, I can't believe I'm defending them. Anyway, that's one way I would spell color with COLOUR. And then I get corrected when it goes to the public review committee to like review the technical documentation, and they correct it. Or they also spell, which is set to American English, just red line, and or wriggly line on all of those words. So I'm like, yeah, well, that's how I spell my thing, So I want to keep what I think is me as that. I don't have a lot of, because the corporate workspace in this country, or in general in the Western world, doesn't allow a lot of flair to express who you are, which I think is intentional, so that everyone is focused on the job. It's a very productive it's a productive minded initiative.
Yeah, it's like there is one goal. Every other thing that you are doing,
it's
like
secondary to that.
Yeah.
And that's why we're very productive in this economy. In this structure of the economical output that we consider important, we are productive. Because people will start being like, what do you mean Africa is not productive? In this structure, in this concept, we are productive because we don't allow for extra, flair of, okay, you want to do your thing in this. No. This is how we just need to, everybody agrees this is format, cool. Let's get it sorted that way. So for me, that doesn't allow me, it means I don't struggle a lot with trying to shop in any different way. I'm always going to be who I am generally. And because I am who I am, I will always try to push my culture on other people. Not push my culture, but like introduce them into things. So people always know I'm Nigerian, right? I'm never ashamed to say I'm Nigerian. I will happily fly my flag. I'll wear my jersey. I don't cook, but I will bring jollof rice if I can, and introduce jollof rice to some of my colleagues. I brought suya back from Nigeria when I was back in South Africa. I brought kilishi for them as well, and they loved it. So I'll do that, bring Nigerian food for them, and people eat the Nigerian food that I bring for them. The music, people know I love like Afrobeats and Amapiano and Afro House. Maybe they don't know, but I put it on my profile, right? So if you look at my profile on work, you see, Afrobeat lover, I'm a piano lover, Afro house lover. I don't think I have an Afro house. I probably have to go create that community.
So what I'm hearing is you show up as you, regardless.
Yeah, I think it's all about computes to me, man. If I have to instantiate another profile of myself, I'm burning more compute.
Yeah,
like it's more cycles for me to do that. It's cheaper for me to run myself as the same person everywhere I am. Than to create multiple people. Either that's at work, at church, at the club,
Yeah.
wherever I am, I try my best to just be the same person because it's easier for me to manage that than to, have multiple
Make
agents.
like different versions.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Fola, something that I always think about is this, and you mentioned this. You worked in South Africa, and you're working with people from all over Africa. It was still kind of relatable, but then now you're in the US. Like, Black people in Amazon is probably not the largest demographic. How have you thought about integrating with those communities at work? Have you bothered exploring them? And like, do you have any insights, or how do you balance that out, right? Because like when I joined Zillow, for example, there's a Black in Zillow. There's a below network that you could always participate in, but I kind of find like I could give it some time, but in reality, nobody kind of really cares.
Yeah.
And number two, you probably don't want that tag on you as the person that flies that flag. Not because it's a bad flag to fly, but also because if your leaders always suggest that you take care of those things, they unknowingly, like you might be the best engineer, but they unknowingly put that tag on you as the champion for that, and then that might downplay
Your actual skills.
Yeah, exactly. Like
the things that actually move the needle for the business.
exactly. So how have you thought about balancing that space and participating in that space when you have to deal with that conflict?
That's good.
Be like, say, we give you jam questions.
I think there's certain things that you said I agree with. Some other things I probably don't.
Okay.
I do agree that you should endeavor to participate in those affiliate networks.
Yeah.
I think many, if not all, big to medium-sized tech companies have affiliate networks that spread across different things like race, maybe religion, maybe not religion, but mostly race and gender, especially like women. Or any, I think it's called I forgot what the technical term is, underrepresented people, right? So that could be Black, could be Latina, could be Asians, could be women, in tech and all that kind of stuff. So I think you should endeavor to try to do it. Personally, do I participate in it? We have BEN, which is Black Employee Network, is an Amazon Black affiliate network. And then we have BEN-Nigeria, which is the Nigerian faction of that network.
Yeah.
I am on the Slack channels, but I don't participate in either of them.
Yeah.
And it's not because I don't want to. I would love to collaborate with them, and if they do ever, do stuff, I would be more than happy to help. But I do not see that as my way directly to contribute. And it's not because, or this is probably where I slightly disagree, it's not because I'm concerned that it's going to look a certain way on me.
Yeah.
I think I can confidently navigate that.
Yeah.
I'm confident enough to handle the heat that comes with whatever I push, If I say that this is what I champion, I think people would, as long as you do your work, nobody really cares, honestly, right? Like, no one is even looking at that. So people are most concerned with the productivity.
Yeah.
Productivity is not impacted because you begin to prioritize this function over the work, then no one is really going to be concerned.
Yeah.
What I have seen practically for myself is I create hopefully an environment for people to reach out to me.
Okay.
People have reached out to me. They see me and they're like, I stand out in that tiny space where not so many Black senior security engineers in the entire company. So if somebody who is in cybersecurity, like some intern started in IAD, which is like our North Virginia office, this HQ2, and he reached out to me, Nigerian guy, and he said, "Good afternoon, sir." And I was like, bro. And I said, Mr. Fola, so I'm like, bro,
Relax.
I didn't say relax. I was like, I understand. We spoke about this already. I was like, I understand where you're coming from, but there's never any reason to say that again, right?
Yeah.
Like, really address me as I am. And for folks like that, I can imagine what it is like to be in a place where, again, like I said, we are encouraged to just put out our output and not really think about, but we're humans.
Don't bring yourself.
Let's not, deceive ourselves. We're humans, and those kind of things factor into the picture, right?
Okay, so you're talking about something a little bit. So for example, something I've found is in Zillow, I couldn't find this. There is something called Dev Color that I was part of. I have not done anything this year, but before this year, for the past 2 or 3 years, I was in a meeting every month with someone that is, I think he's a senior director, a VP at like a very big tech company. I'm not going to say the name because everybody's going to know what the black person that's the person at that company is. But I got to have conversations where, like, you might think like, oh man, this work thing, like this American culture is like real work. And then it tells you stuff like, hey, like I wanted somebody's org and 200 of their reports. And I told my leaders that I wanted them. And they made that person back to an IC. And they gave me 200 reports from that person. And that is a real thing. And it is something that you don't even think is possible. You cannot relate. And there are no archetypes for how to think about things from that perspective until you're surrounded by people that are like you, that can let their guard down and just tell you that stuff. So like, I definitely think it's super valuable, but also like you said, at work, at Zillow, like I've participated in 1 or 2 recruiting events. I've not been active for the past like 2 or 3 years. I tried to be active much earlier in my career, but for me, it's kind of hard to say, hey, I'm working maybe 60, 70 hours a week sometimes. It's hard for me to say, hey, I actually don't interview anybody at work. Like I don't do a bunch of things. It's hard for me to say, hey, I leave all the other things that might matter to me first and might matter to me being like really delivering the most value at work. And then I can actually make time to do that in the midst of all my busy life. It always is very hard. So I've just never been able to participate.
I think it's interesting because the way I navigate that, or I'm learning to navigate it with my principal is you actually mentioned this, right? Is any of those things aligned with what you need to grow in or what you need to help with or what the organization needs, right? Because if they're like, hey, we need more people on our team, right? You're in a situation where there were only like 2 people on your team, right? If they needed you to go and interview people,
no, they needed me to interview, so I was interviewing a lot.
Exactly, right? And yeah, maybe at that time, interviewing wasn't...
All of us were interviewing.
Yeah, everyone was interviewing, but at that time, maybe the technical things that you guys had to do was important, but interviewing was also equally important because who could do the work, right? So if it's part of what business needs, 1, 2, it could also be like, for me, for example, say I'm trying to get to senior software engineer. I need to show that I can mentor people. I need to show that I can help people, right? On my team, maybe formally, maybe informally. So it's like, there are those opportunities that I can find within those networks to then show or like flex those skills, right? And so like, if it's not then aligned to what you need to do, it can be hard to put in the effort to then say, okay, I'm going to spend time in doing this thing because we're all selfish, right? At the end of the day, we really want what's good for us, what's best for us, as opposed to saying, oh, I'm going to do this thing for the goodness of my heart. Yeah.
It's not about them to be selfish, I would say. I think we are all selfish for a reason.
Yeah.
Like there's a negative connotation to selfishness. I think it's when it's overly self-centered at the expense of others is when it's bad. But we are our biggest advocates. No one's going to advocate for you more than yourself, right?
Absolutely.
So if you don't stand up, and one of the things I learned as well was, having to do promotions on Amazon, you have to brag.
Yeah.
You gotta not humble brag, like brag. You gotta write, oh, I was the one that did this. If I didn't do it this way, then the company would have failed. It's not for me. Yeah. And it's not really bragging just by bragging. You write it with data points, and people have to back up your story to say, oh, I can write a story about him in this specific data point. He did this or did that. So I do think you are, in your regard of what you've said of like, you have to make sure they're taking care of yourself first.
Yeah.
Because that's what you're here for, right? Like every other thing is secondary. This is work. We're here to work. You're here to return shareholder value. Everything to that is secondary. Outside work, we got life. And we can do other things with our life. You can do dev color. You can do Afrotech. You can do what you do. You can host community events, like all of those things. But I personally don't participate in many of those community events because I don't have that time. Where I think I help is just if someone reaches out to me, I kind of give him sincere thoughts and, like how that guy would say, because you're very right. It's only when you speak to people like that you have that perception that you'd never would ever have, just because we are not, it is what it is. We are not just represented here, right? Like, and we may feel more comfortable speaking to each other, right? Than we would with, other people. It's just what it is, right? So, and I'm hearing things I would hear from, I just imagine if we were more, and maybe we're never going to be more. I am hopeful and optimistic, but like in our off-camera conversations, right? We're talking about things that if none of us walked out where we walked out, we'll have no idea those things exist.
Yeah.
And if we want to kind of say, let's get together, let's, do something, build the next big AI. Imagine like we have the ability to do stuff like that, like the next big company or whatever. And so this is what many other people have advantages of.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, how they keep churning out companies and VCs are back in there because the ecosystem belongs to them.
Yeah, one of the things that I strongly think is this, and I say this with all respect, I love the fact that I worked with a lot of people that are Indian in tech. I'll tell you, like, if you look back 20, 30 years ago, there used to be like, there used to be a way that people used to think about it. But if you look at tech now, how many of the CEOs are Indian? Yeah. And that's the thing, right? I think, and that for me is what I really hope that Nigeria actually gets to. We get to a point where, not just Nigeria, like Africans, like when we get to a point where there is a critical mass of us that are doing super valuable, hard things, and we pull ourselves in and we support ourselves to grow. And that's the only way we're going to get out of this. Like and part of when I moved to the US was like, I was at the point in my career I felt like I was only a user of technology. I wasn't a creator. And part of moving to the US was part of doing that. I would ideally want a world where we had way more. We had 200x the volume of Nigerians, 200x the volume of Africans actually in tech, in super high places, like, yes, leading things, working on super complex problems. That's the way that we have a Nigerian Google CEO. That's the way we have a Nigerian Cisco CEO. And like that, I'm completely here for that.
Yeah, that's also my optimistic hope.
Yeah.
Realistically, I don't know about that, honestly. I'm optimistic and I hope for that future. But I just think there's a lot that has to happen to get there, especially when you use the word creators versus users of technology. We really are mostly users of technology. And the ecosystem that we live in is such that, I think that's one of the things that shifted for me, was I finally was in a position where I can actually create things because I've been privileged to work in this company where the decisions I make has impact over a lot. Like the difference is scale.
Yeah.
Scale is the only difference.
Yeah.
The changes we're making in Nigeria is within those 36 states of Nigeria. The changes you are making here is across the world or across the country.
Yeah.
Right? So until we understand scale starts from the grassroots, where I have colleagues who did not go to college, right? And if you say that to Nigeria, everyone went to college in Nigeria, right? And to them, it's like a rite of passage. But that's not do you understand the tech? If I give you the Linux box, do you understand the commands? Do you understand how the kernel works? Do you understand what user space is? Yeah. How deep, and that's and now it's coming to me all the questions you asked me earlier. One of my big culture shocks was also, AWS is heavily Linux.
Yeah.
And Nigeria is heavily Windows.
Yeah.
We do some Linux here and there, HP UX, or some CentOS, when you're having to work on this physical hardware devices that the OEM supply for you. But we are not a Linux country, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, my Brazilian colleagues were eating Linux for breakfast like it was nothing.
Yep.
Right?
Then they run the terminal command.
They were just killing
SSH.
everything, and so that's the grassroots I'm talking about. Either they went to school or not. That's just the environment they live in.
Yeah.
And that will naturally produce. I shared something with some of my friends. I'm just going to see if I can quickly show you. I think it was the top employees in AI companies today. This is it. So this is I think about this a lot. I'm just trying to show you.
Oh no, I know it. The experience of almost everybody's Chinese. Jensen Huang talks about that.
So look at this. So these are the names, and then you have the nationalities, Let's look at the nationalities here. You got American, Israeli, Brazilian. I'm not surprised by this list. I'm seeing 2 South Africans on that list. I'm not surprised by this list. Nigeria, I think a Nigerian could have been on this list, but would probably have had just 1 or 2. Because I think we're that kind of people. Or maybe an African would have been on this list, or 1 or 2. But the question is, you're talking the scale you're talking about, to have a lot of them, that means, because for you to have that scale at the top, it means the base is massive.
That'd be a massive pipeline.
It's massive.
Yeah.
Because only 1 in a million make it to the top CEO job.
Yeah.
So the other, entry level engineers, and so I don't know. I'm hopeful, like I said.
And what I'm even saying is that's the dream. Like,
Oh,
I
yeah,
can
the
imagine
dream,
the
yeah,
first, the
and it doesn't have to be this big tech company. It
Indian-
could be back in Niger. Like, it could be back in Africa for me. Like, I don't even care if it's in
No,
the US.
I'm even saying the first Indians that started in tech in the 70s, they were the only Indians in the room with everybody being American.
Yeah.
And those people did not make it to being CEO of Google.
Right. They laid the groundwork for the generation. So that's what I mean by optimistic. I don't think it's going to be in my lifetime.
Yeah.
It's not going to be maybe it is, I don't know, but I don't think it's going to be in our lifetime that we see that. But we are going through all the trials and tribulations and travails we've, 3 of us have experienced here, only makes it easier for the next generation. And I think that's the beauty. When one generation struggles, the next generation should be better. That's why you have tech where you have Generation 5, Generation 6 is better than Gen 5. So 6 is better than 5 because the problems of 5 have already been solved in 6 and plus some new features. So the people that come after us will not have to struggle with what we struggled with. Like Visa, that was, the amount of compute cycle I've released from my brain now that I don't think about that anymore. You have somebody who doesn't have to even deal with that in the first place. So the amount of time they would have used, you understanding the system now is optimizing their movement, and they're going to move faster than you would have moved.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the main thing. And I think like that goes back to what we are saying with, you don't have to figure all this stuff out alone. The engineer that wrote Gen 5, when they say you should come and do Gen 6, just go and ask this guy,
quietly.
How do copy the guy's code? That's the truth. Like just look at his own and start from there. Because you don't want to start to figure out how to build a wheel. Like you want to, first build a box, then triangle. Somebody has built something that is like almost a circle. Go and ask him and let him and just optimize the things he's done, and you have a much easier journey.
As we wrap up, do you have any key takeaways or any key lessons that have stood out from your time as an international engineer? I like to call you an international man of mystery. Nigeria to South Africa, Cape Town specific, and then from South Africa. I think you're one of the very few people that I know that thrives in the way you do your things. You are very... I've never met a person that didn't say they don't like being around you. I wanted to talk about relationship building, but I don't think we'll have time because you know how to do it very well, and you know how to do it in a way where you just adapt, but also kind of like make people around you feel good in some sort of way. I don't know. It's kind of like your superpower in some way, but if you have any key takeaways on how you kind of like navigate that relationship building as you go through these spaces, if you've gone to Nigeria, South Africa, and all of that, I
would encourage people to be very open-minded. I think one thing that South Africa forced me to do was rethink all of the preconceived notions I had. My culture was dismantled. Not my culture, but my cultural point of viewing life was dismantled. And so I had to reconstruct it. And it took me 3 years to reconstruct it. One of the reconstructions was, for example, I moved to South Africa and I asked myself, they had programs like Triple BE, which is similar to affirmative action in the US. And I'm like, coming from Nigeria, you're like, man, you don't need this, man. Just do go to school and you get a good job. You have all the opportunity. I didn't quite understand that. It took me a very long time to get to that point where you have to do that. And so I think I was forced to be open-minded. And I think I was blessed and have been blessed to be in a society where meritocracy has been, important. And so it's helped me to, honestly, I'm not going to lie. I think I've been blessed to live in any society. If you make it meritocracy or nepotism, I'll figure it out. Unfortunately, nepotism, I can't pick who I'm born to. But I'll try my best. It's just really back to that OODA of, maybe that's where the open-mindedness comes from. Try your best to be open-minded. And I think...
Can you just repeat OODA for the people again?
OODA means observe, orient, decide, and act. Right? So it's a military strategy on how to make decisions on how to move forward or make progress in certain regard. I forgot the guys are credited to developing it. But I think for me, it boils down to, I'm going to quote Ravi Naval. The sign of intelligence is the ability to get what you want out of life. So I often look at intelligence. I'm learning something also. I used to think intelligence in one dimension, which is academic intelligence. I left and realized I may not have been the most academically intelligent, but I had intelligence in other things. And one of my intelligences is social intelligence. Learn that skill. If it means developing your charisma, developing your empathy, your emotional quotient, your EQ, picking very few hills to die on. I have very few hills to die on. A lot of people have a lot of hills to die on. You know, indentations in code versus not indentations in code, right? People have a lot of hills that so it makes me more flexible because I pick maybe 2 hills to die on in any topic. The rest is negotiable. So I would encourage people to kind of, to do that. Realize there are multiple types of intelligence. And intelligence is only, if you can get what you want out of life, that's intelligence. If you want to set up a company and you figure out whatever the means justifies the end, whatever way you figure out how to get to that point, then you are smart. If people say this is the way intelligence is, there are other types. And one I learned was social intelligence. And fortunately, I was able to realize I had that and just kind of leaned into it a lot.
Yeah, lots of social intelligence and empathic perspectives that I see that a lot when we hang out.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I've never found someone who was like, Fola, Fola. Like, everybody knows Fola and everyone has a good time around Fola. I think that's how our relationship started. That's how I've introduced you to so many people. You've introduced me to more people, and it's just, I don't know. It just speaks to your character. It speaks to the kind of person you are.
Yeah, I think relationship building as well is. I often like to be like a DJ where you just keep connecting people together. You connect songs. That's what DJs do. They connect songs and make a really great melody or rhythm. I know these people, they know these people, or y'all should meet. Or come together and meet and do what you got to do. Or I understand how this works. And I need to reach out to somebody who understands how this works. And then both of us can collaborate together and maybe create a new thing. And that's what I do at work as well. Because I've been at this role for a while now. I can easily connect people with the right people. I don't gatekeep anything. I'm not in a point where I'm like, oh, okay, I'm the only one that has to know how to do this thing. If you want me to teach you, I'm going to teach you. Go do it. Because I know one thing. If you're really good at something, you always will find the opportunity to express it, right? People can't take what it belongs to you. A lot of people have a scarcity mindset of, maybe they are rightfully so to have that mindset, but they think, if I give up the 3 scripts that are holding this entire company together, I'm not going to have my job security anymore. I don't think that way. If I lose it, then I lose it. I try my best. I would like, someone reached out to me earlier today. One thing I'm always chronically online as well, which I think is a problem. Again, childhood trauma. He reached out to me and he was asking me a question about something. I was like, you know what? This guy, he's left our team now, but he wrote a really great article on how this works. Why don't you go read it and write the article on like a wiki on how this works? And you're new to the team. It's going to be really, really helpful for people to see that this guy is adding. I could go write, but I'm like, why would I write it when somebody gets way more value?
It doesn't add more.
It doesn't add more to me. It could be good to me because if I'm like, everything has author Fola. Then everybody knows that I'm the one that writes it. No, like I don't, so let people shine. Give people, always think about what you can give to people, not what you can get from people. I think that's kind of how I operate.
Thank you very, 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 very much for taking time to speak with us and with our audience. We really, really appreciate you.
My pleasure.
This has been Beyond the Build. Thanks for listening, wherever you are. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, we have a form in the video description or in the podcast description where you can ask us any questions or you can suggest an episode for us to shoot as well. We want to introduce a segment where we involve, more of our audience. So don't forget to use that, or also send us a text, whichever way works for you. Thanks for watching wherever you are. We will catch you in the next one.